So Ken, you mentioned we'll talk about some teams. You mentioned a couple just now. Give us some others and some potential bets that we'll be on here for week number 1 with what you just said in tow.
Yeah, so the three markets here that are really, really interesting. So first of all, if you played well in week 1, that you've been bet on this week, or in week 0, sorry. If you played well in week 0, you've been on this week. People have bet Illinois this week. People have bet, there's one other play on team that played last week. And now I won't remember who it is. Florida Atlantic. People like them. Also apparently might be getting someone back from an injury, which is maybe would help them out a little bit. But there are a bunch of teams that looked poorly that are playing again. Some teams are playing FCS teams, whatever. There are 3 instances where I think everyone thought this team played awful, and you have to figure out where the bottom is. And rather than take all 3 and be like, well, just get contrarian in all 3, I just told you that doesn't matter. I told you that doesn't work, basically. That, sure, all 3 could cover. It would just be random. The first team would be Wyoming. They got trucked. You heard the call from, coming out of break. They played Illinois. They got absolutely smoked in the game. It's also possible Illinois is really good. We don't even really know the answer to that. Illinois is going to play Indiana this week. They're taking money in that game too. By the way, they're +3 right now at Indiana in Indiana's home opener. And Wyoming has done something that you don't really see very often. They've gone from pick to like +7 in a home game off of the performance that we saw last week. Now, this would be a situation where my number actually I made an adjustment from last week as well. This is a situation where I totally agree with this move. I don't think this is like a crazy number. My number in the game the market is 6.5. My number in the game is 6.8. Like Tulsa by 6.8 on the road at Wyoming. This is a situation where I think everything's moving correctly. This is not an overreaction, in my opinion. But you might see the move and be like, well, that's stupid. That's crazy. I got to play against that. I don't think so. I think that's actually one that worked the right way. The other 2 are a little more interesting. Nevada played maybe the worst game of anyone, but they won, and they covered, to the chagrin of a lot of people, against New Mexico State, depending on what number you got. They're home against Texas State, who has not played a game yet. Nevada opened an 8-point favorite. And
is Spavital still the coach there?
Yes, Spavital is still the coach of Texas State.
In season 1 of You Better You Bet, we were betting Spavital first quarters, I think every single game.
Yes,
and I think we lost. Spav. I think we lost more often than we won. Yeah, but Spav, for the real ones, will remember Jake Spavital.
Yes, the real ones. Only the real ones will remember. Nevada, coming into the year, was an 8-point favorite in this game. They were an 8-point favorite before the game started last week. They are now pick or a 1-point dog at home after being an 8-point favorite and looking terrible and sort of justifying, I think, what everyone thought about them. The other thing these 3 teams have in common, Wyoming, Nevada, Hawaii, not only do they play in the same conference, but they all have brutally low returning production. They're 3 of the worst returning production teams in college football. That's why they were getting bet against so much in week 0. They have nothing left. And people are like, well, they have nothing left. They're not going to be very good. They're playing overmatched teams that are overmatched. Or they're overmatched rather versus their opponents, so they're going to lose by 1 million. And they did in a couple cases. This is a situation where I think I'm going to end up playing Nevada. I'm not sure. This is close enough to my number is Nevada 2, Nevada 2.5. So if Nevada becomes like a home dog in the game after being an 8-point favorite a week ago, that would, to me, in my opinion, be too far. But we're not really there yet. We're like close to it happening. So we sort of have one where I think everything's working great.
It's a pick-em basically right now at Bet Rivers, Ken. Nevada's basically a pick-em right now at Bet Rivers.
Okay.
Nevada's basically a pick-em right now at Bet Rivers.
That's I think we're heading in that direction where, like, okay, I would think about betting it. So think about, we have, in my opinion, you have Wyoming. That move I totally agree with, wouldn't make a bet. But all 3 of these are huge moves. Wyoming I agree with. This one is close to me betting the side that no one wants, but maybe not there yet. Would love to get a few points. 3 especially would be amazing. Let's follow that market a little more closely. And then the third one is a bet that's already in a range that I would like. And the remarkable thing about this game, Western Kentucky and Hawaii, is that both teams played last week. And you would think Western Kentucky was amazing. You would think they must have won 100-0 the way that this game's getting bet. 12.5 before the game started last week. Hawaii obviously gets destroyed by Vanderbilt. They got scored 35-0 in the third quarter, commit a bunch of turnovers, return for touchdowns. They look terrible. Vandy is an SEC team for what it's worth. Maybe this is a really good version of Vandy, which still is just okay. But that would be like a really good version of Vandy. Should win that game by a lot. Western Kentucky plays Austin Peay, an FCS team, and looks atrocious in the game. I mean, really brutal. Almost worse than Hawaii looked, given the opponent. Like, I mean, you're kind of supposed to cover and win by margin when you're Western Kentucky facing an FCS team. And yet, despite that, people have lined up again to bet against Hawaii in this game because they lost by so much. This is the one of the three I'd be the most interested in. First of all, you get Hawaii in a home game. You get Western Kentucky traveling after playing a game, and the season just started. Like, these seem like a situational spot that I would actually kind of highlight, basically. And Western Kentucky also might not be good. Didn't look good at all last week. If you're going to downgrade Hawaii, what are we doing with Western Kentucky? We're going to bet them past 2 touchdowns in this game? So my number in this game, I think, is 10 and open 12.5, so close enough, and now is 16.5. I'll take Hawaii as like a huge home dog now. You have the benefit of nobody wants these 3 teams. Nobody wants them. All people want to do is bet against them. Bet against them in week 0. They were right in 2 of the 3. Betting against them almost a full touchdown in a couple cases in week 1. There's one where I wouldn't touch it. There's one Nevada where it's like, oh, okay, maybe. And I think this one, like, sign me up for Hawaii. I couldn't sign me up in week 1 at a big number. I think you could sign me up here. A way bigger favor than they were than Vanderbilt was against them. Crazy. So I'll take Hawaii in week 1. Keep saying week 2.